family.
And not long ago, we had an oncologist come and say he wasn't even using fentanyl to treat his cancer patients. They were using alternative therapies too. The nonprofit Community Bridges is passionate about preventing fentanyl addiction and overdose, and the drugs spreading across Arizona.
So we have a special guest today. Stephanie Siete joins us in studio with how to spot if your loved one is using it. Good morning. Is that obvious? Always obvious?
Good morning. And no, it is not always obvious because, again, fentanyl falls into the opioid family. And with opioids, we tend to see that people are tired and lethargic and drowsy. And I always have to ask, like, well, who isn't tired?
Right.
But this is a tired that can cause you to go to sleep permanently. So that's what's super scary about this.
I mean, we just ran a story earlier in a news block about two women, a mother and a grandmother with a child in the car using fentanyl. To imagine that people are out in the world navigating, the roads and just life and taking care of children at this level of impairment is terrifying.
That's the ripple effect that people don't think about. Someone behind the wheel. It's not just drinking and driving. I saw that story, but that is a universal story happening all around the country because, again, if it impairs you to the point where you just pass out, they're crashing, they're exposing their children to this. Everyone's being impacted by this stuff.
And
it's
to hear
dangerous.
that a pill the size of a grain of sand can be deadly.
Yeah, I know. People are like, why
shocking.
is she holding this? But that's what I wanted to show people is, like, you could literally pour just little grains of salt, and that's what fentanyl looks like. But a dosing of micrograms, not milligrams, is what can be fatal. And sometimes you wouldn't really see that. Do you know what I mean? But again, it tends to show up in pill form, and people think it's something else. Oh, I'm using Percocet or oxycodone, and if any of this is in there, very scary stuff.
And so that's why we're hearing more and more about the mixture, right? So it's fentanyl mixed with something else, and oftentimes that other element to the mixture can be a chemical or something else that could result in death.
Exactly.
Or overdose.
So that's my emphasis. You never take unknown substances. If you don't know exactly what it is, where it came from, because it's so tiny to the eye, it could be cut into anything. You don't take unknown substances at any age into your body. And if you start to feel that abnormal, I feel drowsy, I feel nauseous, I feel sick, call 911 immediately. That's why these other drugs like Narcan, naloxone are available. The opioid reversal medication, but you heard in previous news pieces, you have to administer immediately if you see those signs and symptoms, because otherwise it'll shut down your breathing. And
So what do you tell families who are dealing with this, whether they know about it or not?
I think they just need to know that it exists, because first and foremost we hear, oh, drugs are in schools. This is not one to joke around with. This is not one to kind of like let it go. It's just understand that fentanyl is prevalent, that stories are covering. It's being trafficked here. It's everywhere. We're seeing it in pills, patches, swabs. And
Well,
again,
and those two ladies said they were supposedly smoking it.
yes, smoking it. There's no right or wrong way to do drugs. So again, that's one way, but they're exposing people to that. So inhalation, ingestion can be fatal.
So, I mean, what the message for teenagers nowadays really needs to be, I mean, there is no window for experimentation, because those mistakes that maybe a generation ago people lived to tell about, it could kill them.
That is such a valid point, because someone uses, we identify a problem, we give them time to get help over here. There's no time to get help, because you could use it again and go to sleep permanently. So there's just, don't mess around with it. Don't try it. Don't take unknown substances. Someone tries to give you something, it's best just not to use it.
How hard is it to get off of it?
So that's the thing about fentanyl, is you might not get addicted to it. I'm surprised to hear about these women smoking it. You don't know how many doses there were or weren't in that case. An entire one pill could be fatal. So if they were just using a little bit and smoking it, it's interesting. You really never know would be the bottom line.
And as we wrap up, just last thing with your treatment center, what are you seeing the most prevalent addiction to? Is it opioids still? Is it alcohol?
So at Community Bridges, I tell people the opioid crisis is everything from the pills, the heroin, the fentanyl. They're all connected. They're all related. And we provide all kinds of, not just services, but education, so people understand the need for our services. We're available here throughout the state for free to come out and do trainings for people.
Stephanie, thank you so much.
Of course.
It helps to get the insight, that's for sure.